All right, guys, looking good. It is 1 o'clock Eastern time. So welcome to our 2020 webcast for visual impression. My name is Vanessa. I will be presenting quite a few topics today that really look at some complementary tools that we can work with visual impression to help you render, help you show some of your projects a little bit better than sometimes just the black and white drawings that we always used to do. Just so you know, this really does hit heavy in the visual impression tool. So if you use visual impression today, perfect. Hopefully it'll take a few things away. If you use our Giza or our CAP software for drawing office plans, you might be interested in adding visual impression to your license. Definitely stick around and see what it's all about. So just want to make sure everybody's in the right spot. We're going to be talking a lot about different ideas when we're looking at visualizing for office design and office furniture. So a couple quick things just so you know as we are looking at this. Let me just share my screen real quick and show you where the Q&A button is if you haven't seen it yet. There we go. Up on the screen, you'll notice that as the next 60 minutes goes on, we're going to ask you guys to ask questions to the Q&A window. One second, I'm in a little bit of feedback. Let me move this out. There we go. So as the presentation goes on today, please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A window. I have a few people here on my side answering those questions. So if it's relevant to the topics today, we will answer those. If it's something we can direct you to the right answer, we'll do that. But to ask those questions, please use the Q&A button. You'll find that in the upper right-hand corner of WebEx. We might miss the questions if you ask them in the chat window. So once you go to that Q&A window, send that question to all the panelists, and someone will address that throughout the session. We will try to keep up with them, but I will let you know there's probably, 5 or 6 of us, and there's going to be over 500 of you. So if we get a little overwhelmed, we'll give you some information a little bit later and where we can follow up on those questions, or if you have questions in the future, definitely stay in touch or stay till the end, and we'll tell you where to find those. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to introduce a couple other people in just a second that are going to help throughout the presentation. One of the things we want to talk about is training. I'll introduce Ashley from our training department. And we've got a couple new classes that have come up, and we're also offering some new regional classes. We've got some exciting stuff coming up at NeoCon we'll talk about. We've got Cindy from our product management team to talk about our new pilot program, and then we'll jump right into the 2020 visual impression presentation. I will be talking quite a bit and showing most of my tools live. You'll be able to see exactly how to walk through some of the steps that I'm going to look at. And then we'll show you guys how to connect with us outside of sessions like this. We've got a space on our website called the community where you're welcome to ask questions. And if you have anything come up in the future, definitely stay connected with us that way. So let me make sure that Ashley is off mute. Looks good. Ashley, would you like to talk about training? Uh-oh, I don't hear Ashley, so I'm going to talk about training. In this case, we've got 2 things we wanted to point out. One, we have a brand new class, an online class that's available for visual impression. It's an advanced rendering class. So many of you, I see a lot of familiar names in today's list. Many of you have taken our visual impression class online. It's just a 2-hour quick class that you can take to get an overview of the software. But now we've included or added an additional class for some advanced topics. We get into some additional things like looking at how to use visual impression mobile and doing some really, really impressive things with your rendering. So if you're interested, we've got a class that's geared towards CAP users and a class that's geared towards Giza users. So you find one that fits well. If you're interested in a class like this, you'll notice the link at the top of that screen, the 2020spaces.com/training/commercial. That's where all of our classes are listed. So here's a little highlight of no matter what software you're using. Maybe we got worksheet. You can take some worksheet classes too. Quite a few different ones out there. Another thing that we've got that's new, and you might have seen some promotions about this, is we're now starting to offer classes in different areas around North America. We had a class a little bit earlier this year in California. We're going to be in Chicago during the week of NeoCon. So if you are a CAP and worksheet user and you'd like to learn some intermediate topics, we do still have some room left. And what we're doing is we're holding that class on the Wednesday and Thursday of NeoCon, so you can still take advantage of the show and then come hang out with us for training. These types of trainings that you see on the screen right now are 2-day sessions per software. So you can spend 2 days and learn about worksheet and 2 days and learn about CAP and visual impression or Giza and visual impression in a few different cities. So Cary, North Carolina, Grand Rapids, Washington, D.C., and Dallas later this year. Again, it's also on our website, the2020spaces.com/training/commercial. So hopefully we will see you guys soon in one of those classes. Coming up at NeoCon, just a couple of weeks away, we also have a speaker series. So this one, they're just quick half-hour sessions. A lot of them do talk about visual impression, so many of you might be interested in these. If you're at the show, please come out and visit us. We'll be on the 8th floor. If you come to our booth, pretty much at the top of every hour, we'll have a presentation on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Another cool thing that we're doing is on Tuesday of NeoCon, on the 16th, we also have a community cocktails. So you're welcome to come join us about 3:30 in the afternoon. It's going to go to the end of the show. Have a drink with us. We're going to have some fun stuff going on at the booth. We'll have some prizes. So it's always fun to walk away with some NeoCon swag. So hopefully you can join us at some of during our speaker series at NeoCon in Chicago. All right, let me unmute Cindy. And Cindy, are you able to take yourself off mute to talk a little bit about the pilot program?
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Hi, we just want to take a few minutes to let everyone know this came out, well, there's a post on the community now, and this came out in our quarterly newsletter that was sent to everyone last week. We are starting a 2020 pilot program, which allows people that are interested in helping us to pilot or beta our software before it's released to sign up, and you would be candidates for any pilot that we would run, essentially cross-company. There's a link in the community and also on the newsletter if you'd like to participate in that. So it's pretty easy. You put your name and your email address in, and then when we have something that in the product that you're using. And then when we're running a pilot for that particular product, we would have you on the list of people to contact to potentially participate. So just want to let you know what that is. We're excited to introduce that, and I'll turn it back to Vanessa.
Excellent. Thank you, Cindy. All right, looking good. So just as a quick reminder before I jump right into the presentation, as you guys have questions, remember you're on mute, so to hopefully be able to facilitate as many and answer as many questions as possible throughout the session, please use the Q&A window, and that's in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see a little Q&A button, and then just ask your question, type it in, and send that to all the panelists, and somebody will address that throughout the session. We'll do our best to answer those as we're going through. All right, let me go over real quick to a drawing. Now, I'm going to start this presentation by stepping into an existing drawing that I already have done, and this one's drawn in CAP, but it could be something you've drawn in Giza. So whichever drawing tool that you use day to day, I'm going to really be spending most of my time in visual impression today. But just know, no matter what you visualize, we have to start it from a drawing somehow. So here's a kind of basic typical. I think the product I'm using today happens to be Trendway, but you can do a lot of these things with just about any product line that you're working with our commercial furniture. And what I'm going to first do is I'm going to step over to visual impression. I just clicked on the visualize button. Give this a second to launch. It will launch right on top of my drawing, and it's going to open up exactly what that drawing looked like, but in 3D and in an example of a room. And I've made just a couple small changes to this room, nothing too drastic, but we want to really look at, okay, it's one thing to render, it's one thing to be able to open up your projects in visual impression and see things and pick the finishes for the furniture, but what about all the other things with the architecture? What if you are specifying every inch of that space from the ceiling to the floor? We want to be able to show quite a few details and really help your client understand what's happening in that space. Maybe you're working in a team and you want to help the salesperson. Maybe you've got a contractor. There's always a number of people on these projects that being able to visualize some of our changes and some of our details are going to help us really get a good, clear concept across. So in today's example, you'll notice I've already specified the furniture. Many of you probably already know how to do this. When we pick an item, for instance, this chair or this credenza, as soon as I click on it, I can go to materials and I can go through the manufacturer's catalog and pick the materials that are specific to that product. So each product's going to be unique. Every product line is different, but the questions always come up when we've got products that maybe you have a special finish or you've got something really unique that you want to show. You'll notice that if I'm looking at today's project, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm looking at the floor, this is a kind of standard flooring option that's available in Visual Impression today. So when I go in and I look inside my materials, there's a handful of wood, a handful of carpet, and I'm sure you love all of these, right? But we know that there's a million more options out there in the real world that we want to be able to really show our end user what that space is going to look like. One of the things that we find is always the most difficult is, really showing a nice carpet texture, or maybe you've got a carpet tile that you want to bring in. So it's easy enough to be able to switch back and forth between a handful of these, but sometimes you might want to take advantage of visual materials. Let me step over to visual materials. It's a button in the upper right-hand corner of VI. And when I click on that, give it a second to open, it's going to give me access to a few things. One of them that I use a lot is this list on the left called suppliers. And a handful of these suppliers, if you look close, most of them are for fabrics. Some of them you're going to start seeing more things like paints and laminates. But as I look down here, you'll notice that I've got a folder that allows me to access some of the finishes from Mannington. So Mannington has a handful of their carpet products, and they even have a rubber line in here that you can specify. But again, this is like one simple carpet color, not necessarily a carpet tile. So let me push a little bit further. If I didn't find the carpet that I was looking for in this list, I would jump out to the manufacturer's website and go look for something. And I'm going to show a few real specific examples. I'm not saying that these are the #1 place that you should pull your samples from, but they're just some that have really, really intuitive websites or really give you a lot of control when you're trying to design and show off the actual product. So I'm going to jump out to the web real quick. I'm going to bring this over here, and I'm going to go out to Mannington. And notice I'm jumping out to mannington.com/commercial. If you go to mannington.com, you can pick commercial products too. And I will recap all these websites I'm looking at the very end of the session today. But notice if I jump under product, there's a handful of selections. I'm going to step under modular carpet. And inside here, it gives me a whole series, all the different colorways, all these different examples. And I'm scrolling really quick, but just know that there's a lot to choose from. And I'm going to pick something maybe kind of wild and crazy. Let me go maybe to the bottom here. How about this one? This has got a lot of movement to it. It's a pretty crazy pattern, but this is something that you can't really expect, every client to see one swatch or one carpet tile and understand what that's going to look like in their floor. So many of the websites today, when you go to your manufacturer's website, they'll supply you quite often with some really good images. So watch what happens when I go and I pick one of these colorways. Let's say I pick this last one. I get a nice swatch. That's great. But then just below that, there's an option here for a modular configurator. This tool is amazing. I can go in and I can pick my carpet sample in the colorway that I want. And I might even have a mixture of colors. I could add more than one. Let's go crazy and do a really light and a really dark. And then from here, I can just choose this go to grid and start trying this out in different grid templates that are preset. So monolithic versus quarter turn versus shuffled, it's going to really change the pattern of how I'm viewing this. As I keep going through here, there's even some that's going to start incorporating the second color. As I come over here, stripes and diagonal. Okay, that's a little crazy, but you get the idea. They're really giving you a lot of freedom here. If you want to go crazy, if you want to take it even further, you can come in and you can erase certain ones and replace them manually with the one that you want, so you're pretty much unlimited. Now again, every website's going to be a little bit different, but just to kind of think, always try to jump to your actual manufacturer, and that supplier quite often will have some really nice examples. Now let me go back to maybe the shuffled example. I use just their basic template. We'll do the light colorway, and then just at the bottom of the screen, there's an option to save this. By saving it, it's allowing me to save a quick snapshot of that view in the shuffled example, and I believe these are about 6 feet by 6 feet in total. I went through and counted each tile earlier. So what it did is it just downloaded in the background a quick JPEG of that example. Here is a 6 foot by 6 foot scenario of that floor. So let me just take this, and I'm just going to make sure that I save this someplace where we can find it. I'm just going to save it to my desktop real quick. Now, of course, you'd save that wherever you want, so you can pull that up really quickly later. So here's how I bring it now into Visual Impression. Remember earlier, I jumped into Visual Materials. That was that button in the upper right-hand corner. That gave me access to a handful of suppliers that were already there. But in this case, I want to be able to bring in my own finish. So down at the bottom, there's a series of color palettes. I have a handful already that I've used. I can also add a new palette if I wanted. If I click this plus mark, I'll just call this Webcast. Now, realistically, you'd probably call it carpet tile or flooring or something that you're going to start putting additional finishes in this folder. So in the future, you can continue to reuse that carpet tile. Now that I have my palette, I can just click the plus mark over to the right and go and browse out to that image. I saved it to my desktop. Now, sometimes when you first save it, depending on the website, it can vary on how it saves. In the bottom right-hand corner, it's looking, in my case, for a PNG file, a PNG. I just need to change it to JPEG. The only reason I know that is because I've done this a few times, and that website saves it as a JPEG by default. That's fine. I just have to change that. I'm going to go ahead and select this. Now, I'm going to note one quick thing. When I select it, I can see it, and it's really hard to tell, but there is a little bit of a white line on the edge here. I will see that. I can come back, and I'll show you some other tricks later to how to crop that or how to cut it down a little bit so we don't get a funny white repeat line, but we'll work with it for now. All right, so here I've got this example. I can't remember the name of this pattern, so we're just going to call it pattern wild, and I can choose what it is if I know the type or the finish, and then probably the most important part is to set the size, the scale of that swatch. Now with fabrics, sometimes when you go out to the manufacturer's website, those can be small swatches, maybe they're 12 or 24 or 15 inches. In this case with flooring, I've got a nice big swatch because this is about 6 feet of carpet. When I go ahead and save that, it saves it into my palette. I'm going to close my Visual Materials. We'll come back there later. But notice that when I've got my floor selected and I'm in Materials, I have access to my palettes now too. Before, I was just using what was standard, just a handful of examples, but most of the time, I'm going to go in and use my palettes and specify it for exactly what it is in this example. Now, remember I said there was a little bit of a white line on the edge of that sample? You see that white repeat line, so we'll come back and I'll show you how to snip that out a little bit later. But there's one great scenario. You know, if I'm zoomed out and the client sees this, they might go, oh, that's kind of crazy. It's a little wild for what we were expecting, or, oh, I love it. That's exactly the pattern that we wanted. Okay? So jump out to those manufacturer websites and take advantage of all those tools that they give you. The other one that I use quite a bit is the Mohawk group has a nice website too. So let me just skip over, mohawkgroup.com. And kind of a similar idea, I can either go under carpet and carpet tile and start browsing through their selections, or you can also access it through their design tools. They've got a section here called Render Ready Images. When I step out here, it's got a whole series of examples. It talks about how it's going to save these images and give you a good idea. I can come down in this bottom right-hand corner and pick one of their series of carpet tiles, and kind of similar to what we saw on that last website, it gives you previews, gives you some examples, and then down in the bottom right, you can choose the installation pattern. Okay, I picked a boring one. There's just one, just the quarter turn, but some of them will have different options here, and then based on the installation type that you want, then you just choose download image, and it'll download a JPEG of that particular finish that you selected. So in this case, I just used a quick one just as an example. But again, take a look at all of your different manufacturers and see if they've got, for different finishes, what they've got available to you for a quick example there. Pretty nice. All right. Now, sometimes when you jump out to websites, you might find something that you want to use or a good example, but it might not have a quick button that says download image or whatever you're trying to bring in. In this next example, let me jump back over to Visual Impression. I picked a floor. That was good. but what if I had a really cool wall finish or a wall covering, or maybe even a unique image or a logo that I wanted to put on the screen of the monitor? Imagine if your client sees that space really customized to them, it'll give them a really good idea. There's a couple additional websites I'm going to mention real quick just to kind of give ideas of, how do I get a really cool image? What if you had a brick wall and I wanted to put a brick wall in the back here? Well, brick is really tricky. You'll notice when you go to materials and you step in, there are some options in the texture section. There are some brick options and some stone options, but just a couple. So kind of the same idea. I want to bring in my own brick or bring in my own textures. I can jump out to the web and see if I can find something. Of course, you can Google this. But I have a couple of examples, a couple different websites that I use a lot. One of them is just called goodtextures.com. Now, again, there's many different resources out there. You just have to kind of search a little bit sometimes. But some of these websites like goodtextures.com, another one I've used a lot is rendertextures.com. There's one called texturemate.com. A lot of these, they're made for rendering options like this. Notice there's a handful of examples. There's cool graffiti. There's some fun stuff, some metals. In this one, though, I wanted to come over and look and see they've got two different series of bricks, and some of these are real kind of rustic looking, some are really smooth, but once you go in and you select it, you can pick the one that looks the best for your project or represents that project the best too. I can take this, and there's an example, there's an option to download it right here at the bottom. And, oh, I have to log in for this one, sorry. I didn't have this one pre-logged in, but then I can save that texture and bring it in really quickly. Now, I think I already have a brick example that's loaded in my palette. So let me jump out to my palette. Remember, adding that in was just like I did with the flooring. I just went to Visual Materials, and I can add that as I need it. And let me jump in and grab one of my brick examples. And this was one that I pulled off of one of those websites. Oh, I forgot to uncheck. I don't want all of my walls brick, so let me just undo that. I can step back in here, and I'm going to uncheck this box at the top that says Apply to All Walls. And now with this one wall selected, when I go in, and I want to choose my accent wall. One second, as it is, there it is, giving me my palettes. Now I can go in and select the brick that works for this project. So there's a crazy brick. As you can see, I did a wood wall before on this wall, and I've got just a simple kind of plain walls on this other one. But a very, very, very clean, simple brick. So if you take a second to look up websites that have render-ready images or images that have good textures, those kind of keywords, they repeat really well. I'm sure everyone here has brought in an image once where it has a very, very harsh line or a harsh example, kind of like what we did with that carpet tile, and it didn't really translate very well. So here's a couple of things you can do with that. Let's say that I bring in an image like this flooring, and it didn't show the greatest. Let me go out to my desktop real quick, and let's look at that image really quick. What do you do in that case? In this one, I had this great image, but it had that funny white line. Now, in this one, I could go into an editing software, I could crop that line, I could do some extra things to it, but I'm going to completely cheat. In Windows 7 and Windows 8, they added a tool called the snipping tool. If you haven't used this yet, you can just go in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and you can just literally type the word snip or snipping. Notice this is searching out for the snipping tool. The icon looks like little scissors. And honestly, I use this tool all the time for all sorts of things. But in this case, I want to snip my screen or snip just the carpet and leave out that white line. So notice when I open up the snipping tool, I can just come up and say new. It grays out the screen, and now I just literally drag my cursor over what I want to capture. And now I've captured it. I was really careful to not get that extra white line at the edge, so I have a lot of control. If you're on a website that maybe you can't download the image, or you can't find a way to download it, maybe they're just showing a nice picture of it, you could use the snipping tool to snip it. So now if I save this and I call this, let's go ahead and throw this on my desktop. We'll call it new carpet. I can save that away, saved it on my desktop, and now I'll be able to bring that in and actually show it without that funny white line. So we'll jump back to Visual Materials. So in a lot of the textures, a lot of the different examples I use, I will use that snipping tool quite often. So let me go ahead and hit the plus mark here to add a material, and I'll just step through that same process back to my desktop, back to a JPEG image because it was the, oh, did it save right here? Was it a bitmap? Uh-oh, where did it go? Did I not save it to my desktop? Let me double check where that just went because I don't see it. I'm going to just hit cancel real quick and jump back out to my desktop here. That was this one. All right, we're going to snag it again really quick. You notice I have a little shortcut at the bottom of my screen. I just tacked it to my task pane so I can get to it really, really quick and easy. All right, now let's pay attention to where I went with this. Oh, I probably went to my documents, to my desktop. New tile, JPEG, looks good. We'll save that away. Okay, now that I know that it's living out there on my desktop, I'm back in Visual Materials. I hit my plus mark, and I can browse out to that desktop and find my JPEG. New tile, no funny white line. Now I can open this up and bring it in. So we'll just call this new, just for time. It's still about the same size, 72 by 72, apply that. Now when I go to apply this finish, it will show a little nicer than what I saw earlier. I jump back to my palettes, back to my Webcast palette. I picked my new floor. Now I happen to just save a second one. I can go in and delete that original one back in my Visual Materials too. But here it looks a little bit better without that funny white line repeating again and again every 6 feet. Now the next one, this next tool I want to show is going to hit a lot of questions that came up in last session that we did a few months ago. Remember, Ashley did a session and talked about some things with visual impression that really hit, you know, working with visual materials, but one of the questions we got was, how did you get the really nice image across the windows? Of that back example, imagine what if you were on site at your client's location and you could take a picture of what they're going to see, skyline, or maybe it's greenery, or maybe it's a sidewalk, whatever it is. I want to be able to span and put multiple images in each one of these windows. Now, in this example, it takes a couple steps to do because I've got 5 individual windows. That means I need 5 individual pictures. I'm going to show you how to cut down on time and hopefully make this really, really accurate. First of all, just note that when I pick my window, I can change my material option to look for a background. Couple other things, just like what I did with the wall a second ago, I need to come in and either check or uncheck the apply to all. Because if I have this apply to all and I pick something, it's going to repeat 5 times. Well, that doesn't look very good. So in this case, we'll have to make sure to uncheck this. Now, what kind of image do we want to see out here? Again, I just go out to the web and I find something perfect. So maybe I come out and I'm just going to Google something. I'll have the, you know, every example is going to be unique here. So maybe I've got a city skyline and I'm just going to jump out and look for an image. Now, whatever view you want, we pick it, and then based on that, I'm going to take another second to then look at that, analyze it, and then figure out, okay, how am I going to separate this into 5 individual images easily? Now, there's a couple different things I can do. First of all, I'm going to take an image and I'm going to save it away. Maybe I'll take this one right here. That one was taking a second to load. Okay. Once I find the image that I want, I can either use my snipping tool, or sometimes when you right-click on an image, you can also just save it right from that image too. And if I save this image away, I'm going to put it on my desktop just so it's easy to find. And it looks like we are in Sydney. So I'm just going to save that to my desktop. There it is, saving away. Now, another resource. I've got another website for you. This one is called imagesplitter.net. This one's amazing. And the reason I'm going to this is because I want this to split my image evenly into 5 columns. Because remember, back on my example, I had 5 windows. Now, it's also a good thing to know, you know, approximately like how big are these windows. That image, I'm going to kind of spread it across here, and we'll take a look. And if you don't remember the size of windows that you included, I can always jump in and look at this in a side 2D. And I can see I've got, oh, these windows are huge. They're about 84 inches tall and about 60 inches wide, okay? So we'll go ahead and divide this, and we'll think, okay, 5 pieces that I want to bring in. So back on this image splitter website, all I need to do, it's got a couple different choices here, but I'm just going to click in this box that allows me to upload my image file. And out of my desktop, I had saved that image of Sydney. And I just choose Upload Image, give that a second to think about it. It's bringing that image in. And then at the top of the screen, it's got a couple different choices of what I want to do with it. I'm going to choose the split image. It defaults and assumes I want 2 rows and 2 columns, when really, if I look at this, I probably want 5, and I do this the right way, 1. Let's go, oh, nope, the other way. 1, I was thinking the opposite. 1 row, 5 columns. Look what that does. It gives you kind of just a little bit of an idea of how it's going to divide that out. So now I've got it divided into 5. And then I can choose what type of image I want to save it as. Notice I could save it as PNG as the default, because I know that's what Visual Impression looks for by default. And I can choose split image. What it does is it splits it. It packages it up into a zip file. So down at the bottom of my screen, here is this folder where I have 5 individual images. It takes whatever the name of that file was, and then it numbers them 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so now I've got 5 unique images. What do I want to do with those 5? I'm just going to kind of cheat here, and I'm going to put those out on my my desktop again, just to make this a little bit easier. Let me see if I can grab these. Let's take all 5 of these and just, I'm going to copy and paste them. So I'm doing this a couple of different ways. You can pick your favorite. In this case, here are those 5 images. They're saved out. Remember, they're named at the end of it accordingly, because I want to kind of keep them in order. I have to start with the 0. Now, if I jump back to Visual Impression and Visual Materials, just like we did with flooring, just like we would do with a wall covering, just like we do with any unique finish, I would want to go in and add those 5 images. So I'm going to stick to my color palette that I called Webcast, and I'm going to select my images and out on my desktop. And PNG this time, I want the one that's number 0. Let me change this to details just so I can read that, make sure it's the right one. Okay, there's number 1. I can open this up. Now, remember that a little bit earlier, I had mentioned that the window size was approximately 60 inches wide and 84 inches tall. So I can go in and estimate how big I want that image to come in at. I'm probably not going to leave this on carpet either. Let's go ahead and just say that I'm just going to put it to paint and just kind of keep it real neutral there. I know it's not really a paint, but you get the idea. Let's save that away. Now, I'm going to repeat this a few times, so I'm going to try to click kind of quick just so we can walk through this. This is window number 1. Notice when I named that first one, I called it 1 SID for Sydney. I'm going to call this 2 SID. I want to number these so that way it makes it really easy for me to find them and put them in the right order, so I'm not guessing which one's which. But if I have these 5 unique images, now I will be able to really, really easily pull them in and show them accordingly in that window. 60 by 84. And you get to watch me do this 2 more times. This was window number 3, so this one. And 60 by 84. And one last time, and then we'll bring it into Visual Impression so we can actually see this. Now, this is something that, it takes a second to do, but again, the wow factor and actually showing your client, here's a really good mock-up or an example of what your space can look like. When I go back and I'm looking in here and I make sure that my materials is not going to apply to all, I'll make sure that that's unchecked. Now I can go out to my palettes. I can look in my Webcast folder. And as I hover over each one of these little swatches, I can see what I named it, so I can kind of keep these in order. There's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. I mean, how impressive. What a difference can that make to show that space and what they're going to see. Let me do this in a high quality so you get a little bit better effect. We'll let this pass over. So I just chose high quality at the bottom in my dashboard. Give us a little more shadow, a little bit better idea of the color. I can see that city skyline in the background. Does it take a minute? Yes, of course, but it's custom to that client, and now I can give them a really good idea, without having to guess and play with that image for the next half hour to make sure that it's perfectly aligned inside there. So spanning those windows, hopefully pretty easy to do. All right, one other detail that I'd like to add to this project is customizing kind of what I see on these computer screens. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. You know, there are a handful of materials you can add, the fish floating by and some basic screens, but a lot of times this is nice to add, you know, a custom logo or something really unique. So I might go in and let's say, let's Google, let's say a logo example. Okay, so totally, it could be anything. You go to that particular company's website or whatever you have at your fingertips. Remember, you can right-click and save this, or I might use the snipping tool and save this, and just get a quick example. And I want to just bring this in. I'm going to save it so that I can bring it in a few times and show the logo right on that monitor. So I've saved that away. Really, really exciting example there. I jump back to visual materials, and I just add that in. Now, sometimes the trick with this is you have to kind of, again, guesstimate the size. This one, I don't have a special carpet size. I didn't have a window size. I have to, you know, look at that monitor that I used and get kind of a good, quick idea of the scale. As you use some of these, quite often, you'll notice, you'll get comfortable with how to scale these and kind of test them out. If I make a mistake, I can always come in and edit this width and height to make sure that it's fitting appropriately. I believe these monitors they're really big, the ones that I used in today's example, and these are just right inside visual impression. So, you know, once I am used to using them, they're pretty easy to pull in and very quickly reuse these sizes again and again. How does that work? Good, good, good. So I knew that this was about a 24-inch screen here. Now, you'll notice that it only applies to one. So in this case, after I use it on one item, it's just like with furniture. If you were to manually put a really unique CO1 fabric on the chair, I can always jump back to my summary and say, I want to apply that to all occurrences of this item. So that way it'll duplicate it even though it's customized. So I brought all of those graphics in just through my room setting, and I found it under all my different options here under extras. And then I can customize that right to that client's needs and make it really, really, really sharp. Okay? So pretty amazing stuff. Now, what do you guys do with all of these things? After you've spent all this time, you've picked all these awesome finishes, you've got the best layout, now we have to think, how are we going to present this? And I want to talk through a couple different scenarios because some people print, some people do virtual presentations, some of us simply do a quick email and show this great picture. Well, as I'm going through, I will want to take a couple snapshots. Now, granted, this is a pretty hideous color mix, so you have to kind of bear with me. I'll show you a few different examples. As you go through and you specify all of these unique things, you want to start making sure that you're capturing all of them so we can reuse them in our presentation. One scenario is once this is done rendering, give it a second to finish up. I'm going to come down, I'm going to click on this little camera, it takes a snapshot. Now that snapshot is allowing me to just save that image, and I'm saving it right now just in visual impression, but I might want to save it to use it somewhere else. So a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'll jump up to the presentation tab, presentation just at the very top here, and that has collected all of the images that I've ever captured from this project. As you can see, I've worked on this one a few different times. I've added all sorts of images to the walls, to the windows, doing different things to the floor. As I scroll down a little bit, you know, each example is in here. As I come down even further, there's unique images for each piece of furniture. And a little bit further down from there, I've got my materials. And then at the very, very bottom, even the details like the carpet that I brought in. So imagine, what could you do with all of these things? Well, sometimes I just want a couple key images. Maybe I just want, you know, one of the images that I had designed the other day. This one has kind of a black wall and a gray wall and a real intense color palette. If I want to save that image, I can just check it and literally just hit Save Selected at the bottom, and it just asks me where I want to put it. Let's throw it to the desktop just for consistency. So now there's an image out there that's ready to go, and I can really quickly, let me jump back out to my desktop here. I can pull that image up, I can double click on it, I can open it up, I can print that, I could put it wherever I want, I could attach it to an email, you name it. But a lot of times I need more than this. Sometimes I want to put some text on here. Sometimes I want to have a few other complementary things to go with it, unique finishes. Or, you know, this crazy example, maybe it's a really cool kind of savvy business and I want to really show off their logo or something else about this rather than just this one image. Well, in that case, I might want to use additional tools, again, outside of this view to really quickly put together a few different images. In this case, let me show one example. I use Publisher quite a bit. Of course, you could use Word, you could use Photoshop, you could use just about anything, whatever you have at your fingertips. But a lot of us have Microsoft products, so if you have Publisher, I find that Publisher can be a little bit easier than using Word sometimes because it's not as restrictive with layering things. The Publisher tool will ask us what size we want it, so pick a size that works for you. And then I can either insert the image that I just saved. I'll show you a couple different ways to reuse this. Where was that cool image? Here he was. I'll say, okay, so there's the image. What else would you do with that? Maybe you've got a couple other images that you want to complement here. Maybe a couple of the finishes down at the bottom or some of these really unique things I had on the back wall. Well, I could go back into Visual Impression and save all of these images that I've used, or you could totally cheat. In this case, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take some of these crazy wild colors, and I'm going to literally take that swatch, and I'm going to drag it from Visual Impression, and I'm going to look for my Publisher button and drop it in Publisher. Now, when I do this, now I can go and I can resize, and imagine if you had a whole series of color swatches along the bottom here. I can really quickly give that client a good idea of that space, and I can print this and make it look really, really sharp. I can add some text to this to outline things that are really important for this project or important for them to note or see about this. I could do this with the furniture pieces too. You know, one thing I'll note with the furniture pieces, for instance, like the chair might be a good thing to highlight. If the chair comes in and it's maybe not the view that's perfect that you want, you can always click on this little camera and update that image to set it up in the best view that works for you so it shows the product well. You could even change this to high quality. We'll let that re-render so it gives it a little bit nicer finish. And then I can click capture. So I can really customize those. Sometimes you'll get a simple item that you're like, oh, it doesn't really look good, you know, straight on, but maybe better this way. And I could either save it right from here, or I'm totally going to cheat. I'm going to just drag and drop it to whatever tool that I'm compiling all of my things in. Oh, sorry, this one resized it a little bit. Now, notice that it comes in with a little bit of white space, so I'm just going to double click on it, and it gives you all these different tools at the top. Like most software that we use, a couple tools that are specific to whatever I'm doing at that time. And this one I'm just going to edit. I'm cropping down that photo a little bit, so now I can kind of highlight what that chair looks like. Can you imagine your logo in the corner? Imagine some text highlighting some important details about that project. This is where you can really start to have fun and compile a lot of the information you spent all this time doing. Do you have other sources? Of course, run out to your manufacturer's website. They might have some really nice images that, like, hey, this is what we were thinking about this, you know, and maybe this was the chair, or this is what the chair looks like without arms, whatever the variance is. Let me open up real quick. I have a few saved examples that I just want to show, just to kind of get you thinking about, okay, what would you do with these? Would you want to print something like this to really show off that space? You know, in this one, all of the images are from Visual Impression again. The big image that I captured in a snapshot, and then these are actually from that 2D view or the top view or a side view, and the only difference is I changed it to black and white inside Publisher. Again, it's just double clicking on it, and there's some color options up here in the corner. So I was like, I don't want that to really call attention. I really want you to look at the image rather than the layout. So just a couple different variations. Put some logos in here, put some text, you know, whatever makes sense. Here's another quick scenario. These are images right out of AutoCAD. The only unique thing I did on here, and it's kind of crazy, but I used the sketchy mode. It's just a rendering mode that you can change to, and then I put the colorways here. You know, sometimes the client needs to see the space before they can commit to that colorway. You know, every type of design you want to be able to show some really impressive things. Sometimes you've got a lot you want to say, sometimes it's just a little bit. This one is a combination. In the upper right-hand corner, I actually snagged the colorways from the manufacturer's website because I wanted to highlight the colors that are available for the chair. Maybe there's some other options where Is it worth your time to render it 6 different ways? Or can I show it one way, but then show the color strip and what the options are to talk to that in the presentation? So these could be printable. They could be something I could easily save as a PDF and email it, whatever makes the most sense. One other kind of cool tool that I've been using quite a bit lately to show off images like this, and this one's going to be a little bit more in the virtual aspect. If you are collaborating with someone on a project, so let's say you've got this project, really fun stuff we want to show off to the client, but we need some validation, and you're working with a team of designers, you've got a salesperson, you've got a handful of people that you want to collaborate with. Inside Visual Impression, there's an option to send this to Visual Impression Mobile. I'm going to take this, and in the bottom right-hand corner, when I'm in presentation, notice mine says sync right now because I've used this project. I've already published it to VI Mobile. But what this allows you to do is to take all these images, and since I've already opened it up in there, when I click sync, it's just going to make sure that everything lines up. Let me log in real quick. And if I have any changes or any additions, it will show this. And it's already got some names in here, so I'm just going to say, let's open this up in Visual Impression Mobile. Give this a second to think. Now, the advantage of me using this is if I'm working and collaborating with a number of people, I might have visual impression, but they might not. Maybe my salesperson doesn't, maybe another designer that I'm working with doesn't, but anybody can download Visual Impression Mobile on any type of mobile device, and then they'll have access to be able to see and view and even mark up a project. So we'll open this up this way, give this a second to think. And what it's done is I've got a few that I've already started, but typically when you first step in here, you would go ahead and create a new presentation. So let's go ahead and call this Webcast. Sometimes I'll just do option A, option B, and so on. And what it's done is it's collected all of the presentation images that we've had, whether it was a snapshot that I took, my images that I brought in, the materials that I've specified with my furniture. So imagine if I came in and I said, okay, this is my client. I'm literally going to drag and drop some of these images up into the screen so that way I can start collaborating and talking to other people about this project now. Let me find my chair. There it is, and the furniture. And I can just keep adding more materials. You can even add what's called companion files. That could be the brochure from the manufacturer that you can just download from their website, any additional material or information that's helpful. Now, here's the detail about collaborating. If you want to send this to someone, all you need to do is at the very top, there is an option here for people, and it'll allow you to invite someone to this project. So they have to be invited in order to access it, but I can just type in their email address, and then they'll be able to view what I just saw in that presentation where I had a handful of those images that I wanted to kind of browse through or show throughout this example. Okay? That's one scenario. Now, another one that's got one last thing, one last scenario to kind of think about when it comes to sharing some of these images or sharing some of the details. I'm just going to close VI Mobile for a second, and I'm just back in Visual Impression. Remember earlier I mentioned sometimes I'll come through and I'll check some of these images to save them, and I'll just hit Save Selected. If you really want to possibly use quite a few of these images in multiple different ways, sometimes I'll choose Save All. Save All will save all of these images, but put them all in a folder for me. So I'm just going to go in and say, let's make a new folder and call this Webcast. Okay, so here's one more scenario. It's going through and saving all of my snapshots, all of my furniture images, everything from this project. Okay? Now, let me just minimize Visual Impression and jump back out to my desktop. There's my folder. There's the Webcast folder, and it's got them organized by the type of image, and I've got a whole series of images. What would you ever want to do with these? There's 1,000 different things. I could put them into like I showed earlier, a publisher file, but there's also, I've got a nice tool, a nice free tool that's available online that I use quite a bit to compile images too. This one, the last website I'm going to show, canva.com. So on this one, it allows you to put together or bring in multiple images and do some really cool things with text, kind of like what I did with my publisher file. I can drag and drop a bunch of items in. So I'm going to choose one of these default presentations. Now, there is an option to go in and pick your size and pick the format, how you want to lay this out. This website has a bunch of examples, and you can do a lot of cool things with this. Basically, what I want to do in this scenario is I just chose the upload button. You can see a handful of things I've uploaded previously, but when I choose upload my own image, what I'm going to do is jump out to my desktop and go to that webcast folder and find an image that I want to use. I'm going to use the last one. That was the one we just did today with the skyline in the example logo. And give it a second, it loads it in, and then once it's loaded, I just simply drag and drop it onto my presentation sheet. So similar to Publisher as far as what I did earlier, it's just that I have to save these, or in Publisher I could drag and drop them to copy and paste them too. So if I had a handful of images that I wanted to bring in, I can just go grab them. Earlier I also saved my furniture materials, so I can pick one of my finishes and let that upload. The same type of idea. Now, the reason I'm showing this tool is, number one, it's easy, it's free, you just have to create a login the first time. And then once I compile all of this, I might add a little text. Let's just go in and webcast. You can type anything you want. Let's move this up here. Once you get it set, in the upper right-hand corner, notice there's a share button where, kind of like what I just did in VI Mobile, you can email this to somebody and you can make it something that they can edit too. So again, collaborating with multiple people in the project, sometimes I'm not always sitting right next to them. Now I can share that information with them, and then they can come into Canva. It's just as long as you've got web access, you can jump online and you can edit. Maybe they're filling in a couple details, or maybe they have another option or another floor that you want to add to this presentation. Once this is set, whatever we design, whatever we compile, let's say that I take a look at this example. Here's one that I brought in a few images. That's called it option A. Imagine this you could have your logo on the side, make this very professional looking, and then once you're done, there's a download button in the upper right-hand corner where it saves it either as an image, goes as a JPEG file, or a PDF. If I choose options, there's a couple other details too on the type of how do you want to publish it. The PDF is high quality, so it prints really nice if you're doing like 11 by 17 prints or any variation of prints. So it's just another option. You guys are going to find your own way that's the best and the easiest to share all of these images, but we just wanted to kind of go through today and kind of talk about a handful of the things that, you know, if you're going to spend a little bit of time visualizing this, now how do we take it the next step and really impress and really show off all the projects that you're working on? Looking good. All right. Now, to finish up, I do have a quick slide. If you missed any of those websites I was using earlier, I was on Mannington.com, I was on MohawkGroup.com, MDC Wall. I didn't talk about that one, but they've got some really nice wall finishes. If you saw the rendering that had the crazy lips, the pink lips, that was a fun wall finish that I used. Render Textures, TextureMate, GoodTextures.com. Image Splitter, that's the one that I use to really precisely show the window scene. And then Canva.com was the last one I ended with. So this is just to kind of think of outside the box, outside of visual impression, what else can we use to really, really finish out those renderings and see what's going on. As you guys have questions in the future, please, please, please join us on the community. It's 2020spaces.com/community. It's a great way to throw out a question if you've got something. Maybe you're having trouble finding a finish, a cool rendering. You just have something cool about the industry. It's a really fun space for us to be able to communicate with you, and you guys can talk to each other. So that way, if you're somebody local or you're looking for something, throw a message out in the community and collaborate on there. So in that, today's session was recorded, so if you missed a part of it or if you have some other coworkers that would like to view this, jump out to the community. We'll be posting this hopefully soon. With NeoCon coming up, it might take us a few days to get everything out there. It's a little crazy, I'm sure, in your office too. But thank you guys so much for joining us. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to throw them in that Q&A window, and we will try to answer them before we log off today. Thank you so much.